Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we have after market close on Tuesday, November 16th. We're going to take a look at SoFi. So SoFi having a bit of a down day today, as I'm sure you know by now. It dropped about 5% or more at certain points after close yesterday, as SoFi announced the secondary offering of common stock by selling stockholders. Basically, they announced offering of 50 million shares of common stock by entities affiliated with SoftBank, Silver Lake Partners, Qatar Investment, and these others that you see here. The offering consists entirely of shares of common stock of the company to be sold by selling stockholders and will not change the number of shares of the company's common stock that are outstanding. The company will not receive any proceeds from the sale of the shares of common stock by the selling stockholders. So to me, this is a very important element of this release, which is these aren't going to change the number of outstanding shares, aka they're not going to dilute the existing investors and stockholders. And so I kind of think that there's this tendency to react to these things in the market of you see an offering, you make an assumption, and then you run for the hills. And that's when you see this sort of selling off happening. And then it recovered quite a bit throughout the pre-market and stuff, as some folks I suppose we're coming in to buy the dip, which is what I anticipated would happen. I had talked about it last night on Twitter and whatnot. But then it just kind of got a continuous pushback throughout the day and sort of chopped around the VWAP and fell down through. Now, it did act in really good ways in the sense of it closed and was stuck right to this 2289 resistance level that we had charted, came down, bounced off of the 2132 within 5 cents of it, and then just consolidated itself around the 2187. Use that as a jumping off point, try to run again at that 2289 and bounce right off of it. But then what did it do? It came down and bounced right off of the purple box that we had put in that was, corresponding to the potential handle, the cup and handle that was forming. But that said, it's very, very close to the 2132 level. And then it came up and just stuck itself to the 2189 again. And it did that for most of the day. Now, it had a little bit of a sell-off here toward the end of the day, but, so it goes. So to me, this is sort of a couple of things in mind. One, non-dilutive. I don't think that this will have much sustaining pressure or power in terms of the overall direction of SoFi. My concern is that it sort of puts it in a directional path, right? That's always my concern with something like this, is that it sort of sets it in a downward direction and then it's hard for it to scoop itself out of there. Though the way that it reacted today intraday wouldn't lead me to believe that it's going to have a hard time recovering from this, and that potentially folks and or institutions will see this as a dip buying opportunity and will come in and help sort of, settle the price. That's my suspicion. That's based off of just what happened intraday today. So it's definitely an evolving situation. So I need more data points than just today. The only other concern that I have is, while it's non-dilutive, they are still selling, or, big holders are still selling 50 million shares. And I don't worry about this from the perspective of why are they selling. I'll talk about that in a minute. I worry about it from the perspective of just the act of selling 50 million shares into the market could produce some significant selling pressure in and of itself. Now, I don't know if these are planned to be handled in the ATS, the alternative trading systems, aka the dark pools, or what the exact plan is here. I would suspect that that's the case, so that they don't just crash the price as it's happening. But, still there could be some sort of perceived selling pressure that comes in, even if it is handled in the dark pools. Why I'm not super worried about them unloading, I think I meant to go check this. I'm a bit under the weather today, so I'm a little foggy and slow, but or foggier and slower than normal. Maybe that's the right way. But anyway, I don't know exactly how many shares all of these entities hold. I could have gone to look it up, but I didn't. I think, going off memory, that SoftBank has something like 117 million shares. So just keep in mind, there's several holders coming together to offload 50 million. So I don't necessarily, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what their impetus for this is, but the way that it strikes me is that these aren't institutions that are like, oh, get this stock away from me. I gotta lock in profit and just get out of this thing. It looks to me like they probably have a decent amount of capital tied up here, and they want to, as anyone else would, realize some of the gains that they've had and reallocate that capital elsewhere while still maintaining a core or a substantial position, uh, you know, within their holdings still. So this, I don't know if any of these particular parties are selling out, but it, on its face, it doesn't scream to me that that's what's happening. If folks have more clear like stats and figures, feel free to put them in the comments, and if it looks good, I'll happily pin it. But that's kind of my take on what's going on with that side of things. And I do think, like I said, I think the market was coming into this in a challenging position, right? Because it didn't recover much after that 21-27 dip. But it did its level best, in the pre-market trying to come up. And then, like I said, it just caught and it stuck itself to really logical positions and price points throughout the day. And so to me, it looks like it's sort of had a really stable day, and that's a good sign in the midst of like what happens after a decent sell-off that's coming from something that's sort of unexpected. So the herky-jerkiness of that, I'm hoping, is sort of like one and done, meaning that lasted for a day and then it's done. But we'll have to see. Like I said, my concern here is the potential for it setting it on a path, and that's my only concern. Now I want to clean this up a little bit because it's getting a little bit silly here. We can always put any of these back in, but I want to get rid of some of these for the time being, and just to have a little bit cleaner of a chart to look at here, because we're also getting some like really wacky day-to-day action, right? Like a chart that looks like this is pretty bizarre. Really herky-jerky moves here, right? Down over 2.5%, down almost 8%, up 12.5%, down about 1%, up almost 1%, and then down 5.5% almost. So this is pretty crazy action lately. And so we'll just have to see kind of where it settles out. That said, most of it is acting in this range. I don't love that it stretched the range down a little bit today. I would have preferred it to sort of sustain itself between this like $21.89 and the, say, $25 level, and just say maybe it's building a bit of a range there, preparing for its next move, but we'll have to see. I mean, that said, the body of that candle does stretch down below there, but we see kind of how that happened, right? It had stuck there most of the day, and then it just had a bit of a sell-off here into close. It could very easily end up at 21.87 or 89 or whatever after hours by 8 o'clock tonight, but we'll see what happens. But that's sort of, my take on the news and where we are right now. But we're going to need to just let this settle for some time, because there's nothing like trend line wise that's super apparent or jumping out other than just these support and resistance levels that we have charted. Now, if we want to look at our 180 MA, which is our sort of indicator of overall direction, price is still situated well above that, so still considered in a bullish formation there, wrestling a little bit with this 12 EMA, which is the first level of support that I would look for. You see it sort of prove that out here and down here, but you see how sort of separated this 12, 34, and 50 EMA are. You could think of them almost similar to Bollinger Bands, where when they tighten up, they're just sort of like consolidating, preparing for a next big move, and then when that big move happens, they all separate, right? And they're still very separated, even though they started to unravel a bit over a month ago. So on October 11th, they started to unravel. So it's been a pretty volatile, say, month and a half or so with SoFi. So we'll be looking to see it. That's why I wouldn't mind it sort of settling itself and building back a little base in order to then consolidate for its next leg, which, hopefully leg up, but we would have to take it as it comes and sort of see. But I'd love for it to kind of pin itself to say this like 2289 area, something like that, and just sort of prove out the consolidation point at that level. But just because that's what I want doesn't mean it'll do that. We'll have to see how it goes. MACD stretched relatively high up here, about 1.24 at the moment. And, just, sort of dealing with the same wackiness, right? It's like fake outs come in, bob and weave, and sort of continuously head faking out. So it's not being super helpful at the moment, in my opinion. The Ichimoku cloud still in a buy formation, though this conversion and baseline are tightening in on each other, so we'll see how they hold. If we're able to consolidate ourselves over into this area, that could be nice because the support not only comes up significantly, if we get into December, we're able to stay in this range, but also the support gets a little thicker. And so the thickness of the cloud is indicative of the strength of the support or resistance. On the data side of things here, we want to look at the flow. Pretty bullish from the more recent. Now this is for certain criteria. These are premiums of 30K, ask only, and coming in with out of the money options and single leg only. So with that criteria, you see overall here really, really bullish, right? But the more recent ones here, there's certainly a slew of bearish ones that came in on the 10th. So maybe just trying to, capitalize on the fear that was in the day of earnings or what have you. But since then, bullish flow per that criteria. Some $25 call option. I don't know that they're going to expire in the money this Friday, but 22.5 that came in today. Not the biggest premium, 38K, but so be it. On the intraday end of things, dark pool activity coming in. There's about 3.7 million in dark pool volume. So we're looking to see if that spikes substantially here in the coming days and weeks as maybe that 50 million kind of works its way through, and we'll see what happens here. These are the biggest option trades, but these are just really often in the money, like very deep in the money or very far out. This one's not so far out, 121 call option for $25. But, I'm less interested in exactly what those are looking like versus the other flow that we looked at for the time being. On the Ortex data, click into the short data here, up just a little bit today, still pretty insignificant in my opinion, 6.92% of the free float being shorted, 1566 utilization, 0.88 cost to borrow, 1.43 days to cover for the time being. So as long as that sort of stays in line, then I don't see any undue distorted selling pressure coming in due to short sellers. All right, folks, I think that covered what I wanted to cover. Oh, if you just wanted to poke, sort of get the SoFi clue in for the day, then feel free to pop out of the video here. If you want to have me walk through a bit of what I'm thinking for the Patreon, then stick around. So I treated my Twitter today, and the handle for that is in the description below, as what I would envision the Patreon kind of looking like. So you see all of these videos throughout the day, right? So just quick description, Prague, I finally jumped in, here's what I'm looking at, and then like a video that's a minute 16, just sort of what I'm looking at. T-list trying out some 12, 17, $5 calls. So throwing in here short videos, DraftKings, throwing in some updates, throwing in positions that I take. Here's some SoFi updates, right? Prague waiting for an entry, Neo, my thoughts on jumping in. So, you see here, I put out when I'm picking up a trade, put in some charts and some short videos. What I didn't do that I would envision on the Patreon is that not every chart is a video. I was trying it out just to sort of like get used to it and kind of see how it was going. I think the folks on Twitter seemed to like it. But that's kind of what I'm envisioning is charts, taking requests, doing short videos, updates on entries and exits, so opening and closing positions, and a few other things that are in the works. But I'll keep trying it out on my Twitter for the rest of this week, I think, and then start to look at shifting things over and actually like opening up my Patreon, like registering for it and all that jazz. In the meantime, if you're of the mind that you'd be happy to support the channel before the Patreon's around or in lieu of the Patreon, I do throw my Venmo in the description below if you want to just throw some shekels my way. Always appreciate that. Or if you want to do it in a non-monetary sense, sharing any of these things on StockTwits or Twitter or Facebook or Reddit or wherever you share or consume stock info, that would certainly be much appreciated as well. All right, folks, I hope you had a solid trading day and that you are gearing up for a big hump day tomorrow. I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next video.